WoW is saved. I think that I've seen this before. Yeah, I've seen this. I don't think you guys have seen this. I guess I can tell everyone on my dead server and all my friends who switched to Final Fantasy XIV that the game is saved. So this is what Blizzard obviously has done. So in their effort, I'm going to read this out. Thank you. And can we please get a thank you, Blizzard, in chat? Thank you, Blizzard, for doing this. This has been a stain on your reputation for years. In their ongoing effort to remove inappropriate references from World of Warcraft, Blizzard renamed multiple achievements in patch 9.1.5. The following achievements have been renamed in the first build of patch 9.1.5. The first one used to be, there was an achievement and it was called My Sack is Gigantique. Now, this is whenever you bought a 22 slot bag. It was the bag that you could buy from Harris Pilton or whatever her fucking name was in the inn in Shatrath, right? So you would buy this bag and it would give you the achievement. And now this achievement has been renamed to My Storage is Gigantique, okay? So there are no more sacks in this game. The sacks have been removed because obviously a reference to a dick is a it's just like harassing women in the workplace, right? A reference to a dick. Remove all sacks. That's right. And we have the second one here, and there's an achievement called Bros Before Ho Ho Ho's has been renamed to Holiday Bromance. I wonder if they will still have the requirements that you have to only do it to characters that are above the level of level 18. So this is what I would like to call an overcorrection. Whenever people were talking about problematic things at Blizzard, achievements weren't really on the list. Like, I've never heard in my 15 years of playing this game a single person complain about the name of the achievement. The reason why I think a lot of people are annoyed by this, and this is the same reason why people like that. What was that one game with that girl where like half of the trailer was a shot of her ass? Like, what was that game? I forgot what it was called. It's Fortnite? No. Project Eve. There you go. All of them. Yes, of course. And so here's what I'm saying is that people, I think that in general, this is the way at least I feel, I am sick of having my games be curated around modern day sensibilities of American woke culture. I don't like this. I think that it's annoying. I think it's reductive. I think that it like reduces the scope of the kind of content that you can make. It is fucking annoying. And I don't like this either. I don't think, do you guys like it? No, I don't fucking think it's limiting. It's cringe, yeah. And everybody sees it. Everybody fucking sees it whenever it happens. And the worst thing about it, it feels dirty, it feels fake. Yeah, it definitely does. And also, it doesn't really matter. And so I think this is another reason why, like, a company like Square Enix and a game like Final Fantasy XIV, like, people appreciate these games because they make jokes about dicks and about having sex and about all this other kind of stuff. And it's totally fucking fine. And they don't act like they're not simultaneously cube crawling and also proselytizing. Right? Because I think that's really what really fucking annoys people the most. And this is my opinion on this, is whenever these companies like Ubisoft or like Riot or like Blizzard, these companies get outed for these massive fucking, like actual bad practices. And I'm sure this happens in Japan. I'm sure this happens at Square Enix. Of course it does. But it's not to the same extent that it is here in America. At least it doesn't seem that way. And maybe that's just because of translation. But what I can say is that it doesn't feel that way to me as an American, viewing the content. And what happens is that you have these companies that are constantly being under investigation or under fire, or there's some degree of scrutiny placed on them for how they're treating real people. And then these companies then turn and they make their games to be a reflection of something that they clearly don't represent. And I think that the disconnect there is what creates a lot of discontent. And it's very frustrating for me to see this because I can see my games, and this is like, is this a big deal? I want to make this very clear, okay? I don't care. Like, it doesn't really matter. I'm talking about this in a general sense, and this is like, it's an example of like, this is like a, it's a drop in the bucket, right? But after a while, the bucket fills up. It's moralizing, yes, exactly. And this does not really matter. Like, nobody really cares about this either way. It doesn't make a difference. But the fact is that whenever you see companies doing this kind of stuff and being regressive towards making any sort of like funny sexual jokes because they're worried that somebody might take it offensively, you know, being like super cautious to, you know, make sure that they don't offend the 10,000 most mentally ill people on Twitter. Like, this is just not something that I want my video games to revolve around. I just don't want my video games to revolve around not offending mentally ill people on Twitter. It's ridiculous. I'm not saying that you should just be like, you should treat people like shit. I'm not saying that these games should have like overt, like sexism or racism in them. Of course not. I think that they can have themes of that inside of a game, sure. But for obviously narrative purposes. But the truth is that this is not really that much. Especially the first one. I can see like, yeah, hose. Hose is like, yeah, okay, yeah, kind of. Like, I mean, does anybody really give a shit about that? No. But the my sack is gigantic, that is just completely fucking unnecessary. I'm gonna be honest, that is completely fucking unnecessary, and everybody knows it. The harassment to men's ball sacks? Yeah, they don't want any, what, do they not want any ball sacks in here? What, do they hate men? Actually, yeah, they do, because remember, they hire people that tweet about it. So let's see here. Next up, female model armor revamps. All female armor in the game will be revised to better suit the applicability for battle. Male blood elf attire, however, will become more skimpy to show their chadness. I'm waiting for fat shaming to come into play. I want overweight night elves. Well, we already kind of had that with the fat Kultirans, right? It's not that big of a deal. How does Blizzard have $1 million and the game is still garbage? The game is improving, but this is like, it just goes to show that their focus is on things that the players don't really give a shit about, like whenever they're trying to fix things like this. I am assuming that Blizzard probably hired some sort of PR firm or some sort of probably a PR firm, right? Or something like that, that was supposed to help them figure out what type of messaging they had in their games that reinforced what was considered to be negative stereotypes. And this PR firm just flagged a bunch of things in their games, and those things just got removed categorically. This was not something that was made a decision on in terms of like a case-by-case basis. This was probably made a decision on by somebody who doesn't even work at Blizzard. So that's what I'm kind of expecting is going to happen. Is SJW employees, not a PR company? I wouldn't be surprised about that either, honestly. I just don't want to see, this is what I think a lot of people don't like, is that they don't like to see games that they love be turned into vehicles for someone to push their message with. They don't want to see a video game become a tool to push forward a message. Video games will always push the message that makes the most money. Nothing changes but the message. I don't know about that. I mean, I think that a lot of video games will, they will do different things, and I don't think these things really affect the amount of money that people spend, because this is the reality of the way that people perceive something like this. People do not see this and quit the game. People see this and roll their eyes. In the same way that they probably saw that my sack is gigantic and bros before ho-hos. They see it, they roll their eyes, and they move on. They're not thinking about this, they're not worrying about this, they're not unsubbing for this or anything like that. It's just not really happening. So I think that's the case, is that the reason why these people do this is because they don't really see any sort of like monetary outcome that affects it. What a stupid and meaningless change. The fact that resources are being diverted into this kind of stupidity is alarming. People claiming it's an easy change, you know nothing of how companies works. Meetings, tasking, quality control, deployment, and legal. We're talking hours and hours of work spread out. There is a minimum amount of work that needs to be done to complete any project. This is a good point. This is absolutely a good point. I could see this for sure. I mean, at least that definitely explains why it takes 1,000,000 years to change things like conduit energy too. So yeah, for sure. Who cares? I think a lot of people care. I actually think a lot of people care, and here's the reason why a lot of people care. I want to explain why people care about this, and then I kind of just want to move on. People care about this because it's indicative of the reality that whenever you're playing a video game, this video game's story and the scope of the video game and the level of fantasy that you're able to experience is being held back by the developers' personal views and personal messages that they want to use this video game as a vehicle to deliver. And I think that people don't want to play like some sort of like entertainment or something like that without having things be preached to them. I think people don't like that. And just overall, it's not something, it takes away from the escapism. Yeah, exactly. Whenever you see things like this that are just made in good fun being removed because of somebody who's not even, who doesn't even exist being offended by it. This does affect everybody. And I think that it does create it creates borders around the escapism that you can experience in games. And I don't think anybody should support this. And I think this is the same thing like with Far Cry too. Like Far Cry, you know, has like kind of this guy who's like, he's kind of like a, you know, South American like dictator, like maybe a little bit like Fidel Castro, something like that. And he's like trying to groom his son to be like the same thing. And it's going to be very, I think, morally gray as to like what kind of a person he is. He's going to be a good guy and a bad guy in a lot of ways. And I think that's very interesting, even though it's showing somebody who's extremely evil as being a good person. So I think this is a good thing. And being able to tell an interesting story, I think, is more important than being able to accommodate the sensitivities of the most mentally ill people on the internet. That's what it really comes down to. The Joker movie, yeah, things like that. I don't like to have you know, the scope of what I can exist in be curtailed by that. And so yeah, we've talked about this a lot, but I've had a lot to say about it. So I don't know. Do you guys see what I'm saying? You picking up what I'm putting down? Yeah. Okay. I'm glad. Give it all. Go back to 2008. Should tell your friends, hold off buying a house for just a few more months. Yeah, probably. Just go back to the 90s instead. Yeah, those were the good fucking days, man. Whenever you'd buy Beanie Babies and play Pokemon cards and your parents would take them away from you because they saw an episode on Fox News that told you that they were from Satan. Okay.